3. I went out. In the end, the entire morning was over after nothing more than being introduced to the other staff over tea. Just when he thought it was finally time to work, he was told it was lunchtime, and, before he could even process it, he was taken along to the cafeteria. The staff cafeteria was extremely large. Knights and servants rotated shifts, but the civil officials all gathered at the same time, and there still seemed to be plenty of space. Here as well it was buffet style, and you took what you liked with a tray. Like I thought yesterday, Sei-san, you eat way too little, don't you? Do I? Norbert, naturally sitting across from him, said so, but comparing him to young Norbert was unfair. On top of that, Saikara was aware that his irregular eating habits had shrunk his stomach, and more than anything, the food in this country seemed to be quite greasy. He had little confidence his fragile stomach and intestines could handle it. Even if the language was understandable and the people looked similar, they were still different, he muttered to himself while sipping vegetable soup. The lunch break was a full fire period. In other words, 120 minutes. He had been told in advance that working hours were from the time of sunlight to the time of evening wind, 10 to 1800 hours, so he had assumed the break would be 1 hour at most. But since an hour, here was 120 minutes, maybe they simply did not bother to subdivide it. Even so, being bound for 8 hours with a 2-hour break struck him as remarkably light. He wondered if it was because he was new and more of a helper than an officially hired employee, but that did not seem to be the case. A little before the wind period ended, everyone began tidying up, and the moment the clock hands overlapped, they all left work in unison. Having never seen such a scene, Saikara stood there with his mouth slightly open for a while. Then Helmut returned and handed him a small cloth pouch that felt surprisingly heavy. Tomorrow is your day off, so go into town and buy whatever you need. Ah! He snapped back to himself as the pouch was placed in his hand. Oh, Sei-san, you're going shopping? I'm going too, so let's go together. Sure. Please have Norbert guide you. Why, yes. As the conversation flowed smoothly, Saikara nodded while thinking, so this is a watcher, huh? In practical terms, he did not know the roads into town, the locations of stores, or the common sense of this world. Having someone accompany him was better than not. Thank you in advance. I told you, you can talk casual with me. Union. The castle town was within walking distance from the lodging. What Helmut had given him the other day was separate from the monthly stipend the country apparently provided him. It seemed to be initial setup money, meant for him to buy necessities on his own. Inside were 30 silver coins about the size of a 10-yen coin. He already knew the currency value from Norbert, but real market prices could only be confirmed in town. Currency was made of gold, silver, and copper. Gold and silver each came in 3 types, including large and small. The unit was the lira. 1 copper coin equaled 1 lira. 1 large gold coin equaled 1 million lira. Since what Saikara received were silver coins, he had 3,000 lira on hand. The castle town, no, here it would be the capital, was broad and lively, being right under the palace's shadow. Brick buildings stood out, but there were wooden houses as well. The first place Norbert took him was a market lined with stalls. From items and shapes he had never seen to things that looked vaguely like Japanese vegetables, there was a wide variety on display, colorful and full of energy. When he asked the price of a vegetable resembling zucchini that caught his eye, he was told it was 4 lira. In Japan, zucchini would probably cost around 100 to 250 yen. Depending on scarcity, of course, but the other vegetables were similarly priced, so he tentatively assumed 4 lira was about 100 yen. That would put the amount he was given at roughly 75,000 yen. As set-up money on top of already providing housing, it was a decent sum. Was this a wealthy country? As he browsed the stalls thinking about such things, Norbert, wearing a blue shirt with gold detailing today, asked him, Sei-san, is there anything you want to look at? Yes. Fresh food will become baggage and spoil, so I'll buy that last. I'd like to see clothing and stationery. Why didn't you say so sooner? He said that, but Norbert was the one who had brought him here first without asking anything. Seeing the town and learning the price range first was useful. He meant it sincerely, but Norbert looked awkward. As they were about to leave the food stalls, Saikara noticed small goods, non-perishables, laid out on cloth spread on the ground. Excuse me, may I take a look? When he called out, a young boy who seemed to be minding the stall looked up with surprise. I don't have anything that would satisfy a bespectacled palace official. He wondered how the boy knew he was an official, but apparently it was from the ornamentation on his issued belt. In other words, palace employment was considered elite. Not caring about the boy's self-deprecating attitude, Saikaira crouched and picked up the item he had noticed. It was a tool consisting of several flat stones threaded on a string, 3 of them lined up. This is... Ah, well, it's like a toy. Yeah, a toy. The boy looked away and answered carelessly, but Saikaira stared at it without concern. An abacus. The calculating device he had seen in the palace accounting office was absurdly large, more like a balance scale than a calculator, and decorated so lavishly it was cumbersome. When he asked, he was told people did not use it much. They calculated by writing on paper instead. Did you make this? Huh. And no, well, yeah, I did. Once again, Saikaira offered silent thanks to Norbert in his heart. I have a request. There you are. Seisan, where'd you go? I was looking everywhere. I was at the stalls. You just walked off ahead of me, Norbert-san. His negotiation with the boy finished. He was about to head in the direction Norbert had gone when Norbert returned and protested. But Saikaira replied as if nothing had happened. In reality, he had only done a bit of shopping, and Norbert was the one who had walked away without looking back. Ugh. Okay, sure, but... Seisan, you've only been here 2 days, so it's dangerous to be alone too much. Since it was the capital, public safety was generally good, but apparently there were dangerous areas depending on the place. More than that, the palace likely did not want Saikaira, who had come along with the Saintess summoning, acting too freely. Yes, I understand. I feel like I'm starting to get what kind of person you are, Seisan. Even though he answered properly, Norbert said that while looking at him anxiously. How rude. After that, they looked at clothes, then ate lunch at a small restaurant Norbert recommended. Norbert tilted his head when Saikaira bought pens and paper. They also bought simple cooking tools and drinks, and finally a small amount of fresh food before heading back. Pens and paper are provided at the palace, you know? I wanted some for personal use. The pen was a feather quill, fitting for this world, but there was an expensive pen that supposedly contained magical power and did not require dipping ink. Saikaira jumped at it. Not having to worry about ink meant better long-term running costs, and more importantly, it effectively turned an unfamiliar quill into a fountain pen and eliminated the risk of spilling ink. Seisan, can you cook? I can at least. Norbert carried the heavy cookware and drinks for him. From the start, he had not let Saikaira carry them, presumably judging that, with his unhealthy-looking complexion, it would be too much. As for cooking, he had not done much recently due to being busy, but 11 years of living alone were not for nothing. Since working hours were short and he expected to have time to spare, he thought restarting home cooking might be good. More than anything, he did not really like the seasoning of this world's cuisine. When they returned to the lodging, it was already the time of evening earth. He put his purchases in his room, thanked Norbert, and they parted. He ate in the cafeteria, took a bath, organized his belongings in his room, and it was still the time of wood. It was not even 10 p.m. So much time. Having lived for work and having few hobbies, Saikaira did not know how to use his time. I'll sleep. Even though Norbert had carried most of the load, going out for the first time in a long while, and in another world no less, had tired him. He prepared for bed quickly and went to sleep. The next day dawned. As usual, Saikaira went to work first, leaving Norbert behind, and Helmut stared at him wide-eyed the moment he entered. Good morning. Gee, good morning. What are you doing? Asked that, Saikaira set down the feather duster he had been holding. The room was a bit messy, so I was cleaning. That was the thing. This accounting office had few people for its size, yet it was cluttered. More than anything, important documents were piled up everywhere, and it bothered him. So he had come in early and tidied up a little. I see. Helmut could not say anything more in response to Saikaira's matter-of-fact attitude. And then, just before work began, Norbert and the other staff arrived. The work assigned to Saikaira on his second day was organizing documents. He sorted the stacks of papers he was given by purpose. Seisan, did you sleep properly yesterday? Norbert spoke to him without any concern for the fact they were on duty. Without looking up, Saikaira answered only, yes. In fact, he had slept about twice as much as usual. Really? Your dark circles are intense, Seisan, and you look kind of tired. When you get older, the fatigue doesn't go away easily even if you sleep. It was the truth, but Norbert was still saying something. Thinking that he did not understand because he was young, Saikaira continued working. Seisan, I'm giving you this. Norbert, whom he had ignored, placed a small bottle with a light tap on Saikara's desk. Putting aside the question of when this guy planned to start working, Saikara finally looked up. Inside the palm-sized bottle was a light blue liquid. What is this? When he held it and shook it, it made a sloshing sound. It's a nutrition supplement. You look tired, Seisan, so drink that and sleep well tonight. He had told him he was sleeping, but if it was a supplement, he would gratefully accept it. He thanked Norbert and put it in his bag. However, that day, something happened that truly wore him out. Kondu, the saintess is calling for you.